Decrease the number of housing maintenance officers from 40 to 10, make the city communal and housing system collapse, and leave kyivans without light and heating this winter. It's interesting to hear what the reform is about. I am not critical, but I would like to hear from those who initiate the reform, from the Kyiv City Council about that. I understand that that is not about just changing the number of housing offices. Tetyana Boyko has joined us from OPORA Civil Network. I agreed with Dmytro that we will have another either roundtable or expert briefing here at the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. He apologized. He was planning to be here, but he said that now at the Cabinet of Ministers they have the intersectoral meeting. There are many emergency situations in Kyiv, the security service, the Kyiv Council, and ministries are getting together, and they will be thinking about what to do next. So in the result of that meeting, I hope they will give us the feedback. Today, I think will change somewhat the focus of our discussion, and I understand that there will be no colleagues from Kyiv Council. We will not hear what new Kyiv City State Administration is doing. It's very interesting because we do not understand what they are doing, especially Kyivites, and Kyiv do not understand what they are doing for them. But we will listen to Tetyana Boyko about what they think as young reformers, as the civil network, and we will listen to Oleg, Kozachuk, president of the Association for Energy Efficiency, and also we have invited the colleagues from Kyivenergo, Olga Ivleeva, the director on legal issues. We will not be discussing the topic which is stated here, but what we are all interested in is if our housing maintenance offices are not efficient, if their number will be reduced, then the question is how will we be receiving services? Our housing maintenance offices are like the mediator between those who render services and us who are consuming the services. And it would be interesting to hear from Olga about their idea about direct agreements between the company which produces the service and provides the service and the Kyivites who receive the service. So but first we will discuss the topic that has been mentioned here with our colleagues. But I will start from my private story. I live in a multi-apartment house in Bologna, and about 8:45 every night the light is cut off, and that lasts for a week approximately. ЖЭК, which is housing maintenance offices, they do not react to a phone call with a request to do something. It's great. Some people found the phone number, and we called directly to the emergency service, but they request us to call via ЖЭК. But then they turn on the light 2 hours after it was cut off. And the last time we spent 10 hours without light. There's no heating. It's the 21st century. I wanted to ask that to Mr. Novytskyi, but with that, I would like to give the floor to our colleagues. First, Tetyana Boyko. Good afternoon. I did not expect that there will be no representatives from Kyiv City State Administration because it's difficult to comment something what we haven't heard from directly from the Kyiv administration, the Kyiv Council. And I just like you, do not understand what will be the reforms in this sector. And we did hope that the representative of Kyiv authorities, Dmytro, will come here, and that there will be the representatives of the Commission, and they will talk about their plans, because now they do not inform Kyivites about that. There is some general information that they will be reducing the numbers of ZHECs, and they will set up one mega managing company, and the ZHECs will be subcontractors. At least it's my understanding of all these innovations. But what I'm concerned with, the representatives of authorities, Dmytro Novytskyi, the first deputy, Mr. Panteliev, these are not new people. These are people who have been in the housing maintenance sector long. They do understand all the problems of Kyiv, all the problems of multi-apartment houses, but unfortunately we hear same words from them. These are the houses of communal ownership, our houses, and so on. In the result, people in Kyiv do not believe that, do not feel that the multi-apartment houses are their property. More than 96% of apartments have been privatized in Kyiv, but there are very few houses in Kyiv which are really in communal ownership. The multi-apartment houses, and again, the burden of maintaining this property is with the co-owners, but also the task of the authorities is different. Instead of illegally using the property of the owners, the antiques, some boilers, and all the heating infrastructure, instead of using the territory around the buildings, which is also owned by the owners, and people could be leasing out these spaces, and this way they would be able to earn money and to invest them into modernization, into energy saving of their house. But this money goes to those who are closer to authorities. They lease it out or they sell these things, and people are not told about all these opportunities, but instead the authorities promise, these are our houses, we'll take care of them. And there was Maidan when Kyivites participated actively, and they were ready to demonstrate that they are real owners. And all the authorities needed, they were to tell, okay, you put it all to order in the country now. It's time to go back to your houses and to create your own energy independence at the level of your house.
Instead, we offer you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the houses could be taken out of communal ownership and be handed over to people. The process of adjacent territories transfer could be simplified, and the local program of the support for energy-saving measures could be adopted by way of full or partial compensation, or by compensation of percentage rates if they take loans. This is not a know-how. Lviv and Lutsk have been working for quite some time along these lines, and even if there is only a development of such a mechanism at the level of central authorities, because the managers of the energy ministry have changed. They know that you can save 40 to 50 to 60% of energy in a residential block of flats, and also we can remove the corruption component, and the next year we won't be even looking for those additional cubic meters. So the work has already started. I think that very soon we will see a respective resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers, but at any rate, we haven't made it this year. Maybe something will be done, but this is not going to be serious in the on the national scale. However, Kyiv has not touched finger to finger in order to make their own program, although this is the richest town, and I think that Kyivans are ready to take responsibility in their hands. Until we, as long as decision makers do not choose a housing company, whether it is private or communal, we need all the forms of ownership on the market. But the key factor is that the owners themselves, whether they are in a condominium or not, they can choose those companies and control the fulfillment of the agreement. There should be a stick and a carrot for every company. If they work well, they get payment for their work, plus the contract is being prolonged. If they work badly, then they have to know that they will be replaced. And this can be done every year. This opportunity has to be provided for in the legislation. However, the Kyiv city authorities are not doing anything in this respect. They do not educate people, and such messages do not sound at all. More than that, we are being told that it's not you who will decide. There will be 10 housing offices. So how, in these conditions, a owner will be able to change the housing offices? And of course, there are different housing offices in Kyiv. There are good and bad, but globally and systemically, until you can change this, the owners won't be able to review the conditions or to defend their rights in court. Then we can hardly expect any improvement in the quality of services. Besides, any monopoly is a huge risk. And we know quite a lot of instances when these monopolies are being imposed. A good company that will take away rubbish, a good company that will provide other subcontracting services, and usually they already include some corruption schemes. So the price is 20, 30, or even 40% higher than when the people are able to choose their providers. And the rubbish, we can say that rubbish collection and rubbish removal is the biggest corruption maker. I can't tell you whether this is much or few. There's different situation in every residential block. But if people were able to control the process themselves and choose the providers themselves, then there will be a competition, because demand does give birth to supply, because supply has not once appeared on its own. So we cannot say that there's a reform happening in Kyiv in the European understanding if we say that we want to join Europe. On the contrary, there's a retreat to the Soviet Union where everything is planned and regulated. But this is our subjective point of view, because we do not have entire information and we have to listen to representatives of city authorities. Maybe they will explain that they have something else in mind, apart, contrary to what the mass media is now saying. Why they still continue to call the houses of communal property? Why they do not remove these plaques and signs in the center of Kyiv that the house is in the communal property, and people are still waiting for some good fellows to come and do repairs on their behalf. And there's always a fear that if they unite into a condominium, then they fear that they remain on their own and the authorities won't help them. But the truth is that authorities are not helping anyway. Here they can promise you to do something and still do nothing and play with this populism. Maybe someone somewhere, according to a huge theory of probability, you know, the same probability my colleague Tetyana Boyko has once compared, that the probability of your house getting into the list of those who will get capital repairs is almost the same as you buy a lottery ticket and win a jackpot. So we cannot say that this won't happen ever. More than that, according to the information from contractors, the corruption component in this sphere was almost 60%. So if the residents were doing this, you could save at least 60% of the cost. So this is the situation that we have now, and we cannot speak about any reform in Kyiv. Maybe we will talk about winter a bit later. Thank you very much. By the way, I also expect from OPORA and RPR that organizations like yours can create some action plans for Kyiv. Please inform us as soon as you have something. We can inform the public and try to do this in our city. And now I give the floor to Oleg Kozachuk, who is the president of the Energy Efficiency Association. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. When I was going to this round table, I was going to ask my highly specialized questions about energy efficiency and energy saving, but it happened like it happened. The authorities have not sent their representatives, or they come and speak and then leave, and they do not hear the most important things. That's why it's about our attitudes. The way we treat something, reflects the state of the communal services. Yesterday I read in Facebook a girl who was talking to her colleague in Norway, said, I have iPhone, I have a Lexus car, I have a good flat, but I don't have hot water and heating, and I'm freezing. And we are still living, although we are in the 21st century. So what do we do and how we reform? On average, only 17% of houses in this country have their owner, and 83% do not have any owners at all. So we have to start from today, when we see the attitude of the authorities, and this is not just Kyiv's attitude, we should count only on ourselves. Maybe it's not so bad. We have to understand that no one will do anything for us and instead of us, and they do not have an obligation to do this. As far as the rehabilitation package of reforms is concerned, we have some developments in Kyiv and some proposals. In June, when the authorities were just elected, we still have no cooperation with them. Unfortunately, I want to call upon them and to do some things. First of all, we have to tell people that to rescue a person who is drowned, and the person who is drowning should do this. We should take care of the load, we should take care of distribution, and we should hope that the authorities who are responsible for some directions will fulfill their obligations and help us. But for us, this is going to be a bonus plus. Coming back to the questions that I wanted to ask about energy saving and energy efficiency, I know that the situation is bad this winter, but I think that next winter is going to be even worse. So the preparedness of an enterprise and the authorities to work along new lines without gas, without electricity, we know the problems of the delivery of coal and gas. I, as a customer, to tell honestly, I'm not concerned about how many millions or billions of tons of coal or cubic meters of gas we still lack. If we lack them, then the state and those who are entrusted to do this have to do something. Why we are here, and everything that I told you previously would be an absurd if the bodies of power, and as far as today's roundtable is concerned, they would come out tomorrow and say 17% are owned by condominiums and 83% don't have any owners. We are doing this because of this and this and this. The pluses are here, the minuses are here. You'll get advantages in such and such time. You have to wait for so and so much time. We have anti-crisis headquarters at the government and the city authorities. Have you ever heard from the Kyiv authorities about the real state of things, about the housing economy, what they are planning to do? I got to know about the reform when we were preparing this round table. I knew that something was going on because I went to my housing office and I asked, and where is the director? And they say, there's no director. Why? They show me the sign on the door and it says not the director, but the manager, the managing company. Very well. There's something about the Ministry of Regional Development. I was interested in this. I didn't know this. But such round tables. Let's wait. Let's observe the format, let the colleagues finish, and then there will be questions. That's why my proposal is like this. Let's, A, not allow anyone deceive us so that they will do something instead of us. We do not stop, and we will initiate with the proposals that we have developed and will implement them, and I call upon you to do the same, because in 2004 we have made a great error. We thought that someone will come and do something instead of us, but let's pin our hopes on ourselves.
Basically, I hope that Mr. Novytskyi will be able to explain things to us, but at least over the phone. When we talked, I have an impression that they have the vision of the reforms, and that's not changing the number of housing offices. I will bring him here. We will do that for sure, and that's very interesting. And I do hope that they will interact with the experts, with civil society in the issues of implementing such reform. Now let's remember what we started from. We have the service generators, we have the mediator. It's either the city of Kyiv or housing office, and we are the consumers, those who receive this service. And we have quite a good initiative, and that's initiative of direct contracts with service suppliers. We invited the representative of Kyivenergo, Olga Ivleeva, and she will explain to us what this approach is about. We have Kyivenergo, and Kyivenergo creates the service. We have the city of Kyiv talking about electricity. There are networks which, or grids, which are not owned by Kyivenergo, but owned by the city of Kyiv. We are criticizing the city of Kyiv. We have an impression that they do not work hard enough. And basically, I don't want to criticize a lot, because once the representative of this Kyiv city is absent, we shouldn't be criticizing them now. And now then there are us, the consumers. There could be a risk that Kyivenergo faces, and that is that the city of Kyiv does not execute all they have. Thank you. I will speak Russian. I do not speak Ukrainian fluent enough. All Ukrainians are very talented, and they know minimum 2 languages. So, the law 1198 has been mentioned several times, and that made it easier for monopolists to enter our houses and apartments. But what this law is about, it created a barrier according to which the service provider, according to that, could be only heat supplying companies, and there are about 9 of them in Kyiv. The biggest one is Kyivenergo. 75 or maybe 80% of all hot water and heating is sold by Kyivenergo. Everything else is Dartes and some other smaller ones. When the law was drafted and we started examining it, we could realize that we have to set up very quickly our sales department. We have never done that before. We had to calculate the tariffs for these services, because we always had a wholesale tariff for heating. We had to draft agreements very quickly, because the law was passed and the bylaws were not. And also we had to conduct many negotiations with the representatives of the Ministry of Regions, of the Kyiv City Council, and other entities, because Kyivites, people are owners, and they did not understand what to do. We had some problems. the heads of housing offices and condominiums were not happy initially, but now we have, I believe, resolved this situation. Basically, there's no hot water and heating in houses where there are some emergency situations, but other houses do have. I have just mentioned Abalone is one of not the worst regions, but we don't have heating or hot water, but you have an emergency there. But let's discuss all these global issues. What is the situation now? I will not talk about communal houses, but the houses which are on the balance of housing offices, you know, that all people have these direct contracts. What do we mean by direct contracts? There are 6,800 of such houses, which is approximately 700,000 citizens. And to sign an agreement with each citizen is not realistic. What did we do? We followed Rule 630. And we drafted the agreement, which includes all services. To put it in simple words, but basically we did not include cold water into the agreement, but we have the hot water and heating. This form of the agreement was published in newspaper Krishchatik. It's also on the website of Kyivenergo. And we were explaining it everywhere. We had a big awareness campaign. All those people who lived in the houses which are served by housing offices, they are paying to Giots, some payment center. Now we send the invoices to people to hot water where they had hot water, and from the beginning of the heating season we'll be sending invoices for heating. According to the law, the contract with population is a contract on connecting. When people received the invoices, they did not refuse from buying this service from us, and we believe that these people are our customers now. That's funny, but you consume these services. But the choice, what type of choice is it? Okay, let's discuss it later. We'll discuss the choice later. I live in Kyiv. I live in a house which is condominium, and I now understand that I'm lucky. If a person who lives in a house that is managed by housing office, and if this person has become our customer, and if such a person wants to have this contract in hard copy, I'm sure that in most cases people did not have these contracts with housing offices. You can go to any customer services centers. You can submit all the documents required and you will receive this agreement. So we are planning to finalize all that procedure in 2015. Basically, what it means that about 1 million people have to come to our centers and sign such an agreement. Then later, we'll be doing it for condominiums. When when the law was passed in Kyiv, the condominiums We have about 2,000 of them out of 10,000 houses. It's a little more than all over Ukraine, but out of these 200 houses, only 96, Tetyana Boyko including, these are people who understand clearly how to manage this house. They came and they told us, Kyivenergo, we love you, but we have our own grids, our heating systems. We don't need you in our apartments. We thanked them because they know how to read laws. Kyivenergo offered 3 formats of relations. We sell them our hot water at a wholesale price, and what they do with this hot water inside the house, we're not interested in that, because our task is to sell them hot water and to then have the pipelines hot. We're selling that to individual heating points. Then many people were probably following this battle between Kyivenergo and condominiums, but now we have found the solution. We have only 130 condominiums which do not want to do anything. Their logic is the following. Kyivenergo, according to the law, you are service provider, go to the apartment, and I am not interested in anything. We do not agree with that, because as a representative of monopolist who loves anti-monopoly committee, I'm not going to enter apartments of people without having the approval of at least the chairman of the condominium. We are not insisting on that. We are ready to work in any format. We are ready to sell our service to the apartment or to the house, or we are ready to just sell the energy in gigacalories. It's up to people. But as to the problem related to reform of condominiums, I understand that few people are ready to take responsibility to manage a house. Our mentality is just about our apartment. My apartment is my apartment, and I'm not interested in anything beyond it. Kyivenergo supports the idea of creating condominiums. Now, in our training center, we organized the courses for chairpersons of condominiums. The first topic that we were teaching was how to prepare your house to winter. We were explaining what you should do for the house to be ready for the winter season, and we are ready to continue this training, because Kyivenergo is not just interested in consumer. This word consumer is a taboo in our company, because we have not consumers but clients. We want to have clients who know their rights and their duties, and we want to interact with them normally. Also, this year we started rendering services of energy audit. You can find this information on our website. We have everything for that service, and there's a demand of the market. We are ready to provide the services of audit to every house. The prices are on the website. I do not know what the prices are. I am a legal director, not a financial director. If you're interested in anything, you can address our press service, and they will answer all your questions. And one more thing, maybe you are all interested. There will be heating in apartments. There will be hot water in all apartments. Now the problem we have, and it's the problem which we have every year, we started heating season later last year, and this year we started it late because we have not had the resolution issued by the City Council administration that we have to start the heating season. Talking about the heating grids, Kyivenergo does not own the Kyiv grids. We own electricity grids. The heating grids are under our management, and that's according to the management agreement. But this agreement, because tariff was not economically substantiated, we always had this difference in tariff, which was used to pay the debts to Naftogaz. The budget was giving us money, we were paying to Naftogaz, and Naftogaz was paying to the budget. But
however, after the privatization in 2012, over the last year, I think the investment was the biggest. And I think that Kyivans have noted this, because we had another problem in the summer. Everyone was complaining that their city is dug over, and it was us who was doing this, because we at last found a source of financing, and we started the large-scale renovation of networks, which did not receive any money for 60 years. It is understood that you cannot replace high-caliber pipes in Kyiv. This has to go on and on. Something like 200 kilometers of pipes. I remember the investment, it was 350 million last year and something like 270 million this year. Colleagues, I feel that we have approached the questions and answers. So there is a mic, and the first question from there. My question goes to Olga. Could you tell us the contracts that you concluded with housing offices without residents knowing? Who is responsible for the inner domestic networks? For instance, when there is a problem with networks in a cellar or somewhere else, who has to repair? Housing office, the housing co-office. But I'll tell you in more detail. I'll explain. The house network is an inalienable part of the house, and the residents are paying the housing office for the services in their house and the adjacent territory. And the so-called rent payment is also contains the source for the housing office to service the inner house networks. Kyivenergo only is responsible for services up to the wall of the house. Okay, Irina, then your next question. This young man, please. Again, the question to Ms. Ivleeva. Why, after the elections in many houses of Kyiv, heating and electricity and hot water were switched off? For instance, in Obolon, on Heroev Stalingrad and Beletska streets, there's nothing there. They don't have water or electricity or heating. I would not connect this to elections, first of all. Well, I guess that elections is not the question to Ms. Ivleeva. We got the instruction from the city authorities that the heating season starts in the city. We started to work round the clock and to switch the heating. As far as I know, in Obolon there's a incident and the pipeline is broken there. We are in repairs there. Regrettably, the summer period was not enough. We still had problems with testing in Kyiv, and it was not, the time was not sufficient to check all the networks. In Obolon, there's just a common incident and leakage. It is not connected to elections in no way. And there's all information available on different incidents and accidents on the site of our company. Yes, really, colleagues, I'll remind you, the pipes are all iron-made, and its duration period is 50 years, and if it is 60 years old, then it is rotten. And this has to be decided solved by the city authorities, and this is the matter of the reform. Anyone else with questions? Yes, Oleg, your comment, and I think that I just want to say that I agree with Dmytro. When you criticize, you have to suggest, and we are suggesting, and we try to introduce changes, and we are in favor of changes and reforms, because the system that used to be here is unviable, and my only call upon you is let's change it. And I will add about the law 1198. This law, you know, it is not by accident that it was adopted. It was prepared and adopted within one day. First, it was done by the government, then there were some slight amendments, and it was submitted by the Martynenko committee. This was a record time. On the eve of the vote, and it was registered on the parliament, and then it was voted for by the afternoon. Only a very serious lobby could organize this, and we, as the rehabilitation package of reform, have prepared another draft law, and it is called Anti-1198. We introduced it together with Mr. Groisman at a joint press conference. We tried to make so that the parliament adopts it as soon as possible, so that the owners have the right to choose even now, so that there's no monopoly. But the essence of the reform is that there should be many contractors. There should be a market, because at the moment, the law says that the contractor should be Kyivenergo, and it is contractor who is responsible for the quality of services. But in fact, it's no one, because the housing office will say that they don't have enough money in the structure of the rent payment. But the main problem is that even if the Kyivenergo does everything okay before it reaches the wall of the house, but the most problems are in the internal, inner domestic networks. Where there are condominiums, they take some care of it. Where there are no condominiums, then housing offices do not influence this state of things at all. The housing rent only provides for the usual repairs, not for capital repairs. If you don't have a condominium, then no one will pay for capital repairs. So this is the situation as it is. As there was no systemic decision, people are buying boilers, people are buying electric heaters, and this is additional load for electric networks. You should really take additional permits for this. And representatives of Kyivenergo, for instance, Marina Litvinenko, in her house in Makiyivka, has done this so that they take additional capacities. This is a very complicated technological process. We cannot tell everyone, go and install boilers as you don't have hot water. We understand that this will solve some issues, but if everyone in this city does this, then you will have the situation like in my house, that at 9 p.m. the electricity vanishes. Now Olga will provide a brief commentary. You know, I have a classical education. I was the witness to the Soviet Union. Well, the problem of our country is that our laws are being changed faster than we can perform them. I am not against anti-1198 because the 1198 was adopted very fast and no one looked at how it agrees with the legislation, but they have to be performers of services. And even if people are given the right to choose the providers, until we create the market of services, it's going to be another 3 entities. I know that I can tell you that there were companies who wanted to be service providers, but according to the law 1198, they have to get a license, and no one knows who issues these licenses, and no one is confirming the tariff. So I know one company that are at their own risks, do not charge people at all for heating or for hot water, and they still have hot water, and I don't know how they will pay Kyivenergo. And the managing company in my house has made us victims of Kyivenergo, and I guess this is much more complicated topic than we have announced today, so it has to be solved at a more political level, and how to exit it. You know, I don't agree with you because the political level always leads to impasse. You have to solve it at professional and public level. If there were professionals in Kyiv, not populists like now, and I mean the mayor and the entire city administration, although I voted for him, I can say that they are populists. Okay, colleagues, I still hope that there are professionals in this administration, and I, of course, count here Dmytro Novytskyi. I undertake personally to get him here. I am interested in knowing what Kyiv wants to do to really reform this. We see now that the housing sector is like monuments to Lenin who are going to fall. So what's going to happen depends on us and on your activity as journalists, and of course on the city of Kyiv. So I will get Dmytro Novytskyi here and tell you later when this is going to happen. Everything's going to be okay.